Welcome back. Between the killing of al-Qaeda's top leader, China conducting live fire drills around Taiwan, and the sentencing of WNBA star Brittney Griner, it is, needless to say, a very busy week for the White House Foreign Policy shop. It's always busy. It's just that we're paying a lot more attention. Earlier today, Griner, who has been detained in Russia since February, was officially found guilty in their court of law of drug possession and smuggling, and she was sentenced to 9 years in prison as well as a 1 million ruble fine, which is about $16,000 US. Prior to her sentencing, she made a final appeal to the judge.
I made an honest mistake, and I hope that in your ruling that it doesn't end my life here. I know everybody keeps talking about political pawn and politics, but I hope that that is far from this courtroom.
President Biden released a statement following the sentencing, emphasizing that Griner is being wrongfully detained by Russia, calling it unacceptable, and vowing that he would continue to work to bring home both Brittney Griner and Paul Whelan. So to dig into all of these developments, I'm joined now by John Kirby. He's the coordinator for strategic communications for the National Security Council. Previously, of course, was the spokesperson at the Pentagon. John, it's good to see you. So let me start with, I know there's a Secretary Blinken, Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, they're in the same country, in Cambodia. Is it possible we're going to see some progress on getting Brittney Griner and Paul Whelan home sometime this weekend?
Well, we want progress today, Chuck, and there's no reason that we couldn't have that. I mean, we've got a proposal that we put on the table, a serious one, and we urge the Russians to take us up on it so we can get Paul and Brittney back home. Now, I won't speak for Secretary Blinken, but it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility that he'll have an opportunity to talk with Minister Lavrov while they're there in the Southeast Asia region. But again, we're still working every day to try to bring this about.
Do you get the sense that Russia wants to deal on this, that they're just looking to see if they can get more? Have we gotten to the process where it's more about trying to land this, or do they even want to have a trade?
It's difficult to know exactly what's in the Russian head here. We don't know whether they're playing for time or are they playing for something bigger than what we offered. It's difficult to know. I mean, last week, Chuck, they threw in the name of a murderer who's convicted in Germany, and we didn't take that as a counteroffer at all. It was nothing more than a bad faith attempt to try to delay answering what is a serious proposal that's on the table. So it's difficult to know what's in their head. I can tell you what's in our head, because we made this proposal several weeks ago. Mm-hmm. We want those two Americans home. We're willing to make an offer here, and we urge them to take it.
I want to the foreign ministers of Russia's in Southeast Asia. I'm going to stay in the region, but shift countries. First, has the president spoken with Speaker Pelosi yet since her visit to Taiwan?
He has not.
The current situation there, obviously Japan felt as if their territory was threatened here. How serious are the next 72 hours? And do you sense that China is trying to do something even more egregious than simply having these live fire exercises?
I'll tell you what worries us the most right now, Chuck, is having all this military hardware flying, sailing, operating in close proximity to, of course, the Taiwanese forces. And that raises the risk of miscalculation. It raises the chances that something could go wrong inadvertently, and then you really do have a crisis on your hands. So the Chinese say they're doing exercises, and that is what they have appeared to be doing so far. We're going to watch this as closely as we can. The President decided to keep the USS Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier and a couple of her escort ships nearby just so we can monitor this. There's no reason for it to erupt in a crisis and conflict. Obviously, there's no reason, no pretext that's justified for the Chinese to act the way they have been acting in response to Speaker Pelosi's trip. But having acted the way they're acting and what we might anticipate coming in the next few days, it certainly does, as I said, raise the risk of miscalculation.
When the last time China did live fire drills like this, Bill Clinton was in office, and he responded by sending 2 different aircraft carriers into the area as sort of a bit of a warning sign, and it got the Chinese military to back down. Should we assume we're not going to just sit here and watch?
We got Ronald Reagan's going to stay there and monitor this situation, Chuck. We're going to continue to consult with allies and partners. We're going to, and you'll see this in coming weeks, we are going to continue to fly, sail, and operate where international law permits, and that includes in the Taiwan Strait, and you'll see us do that in coming weeks. We're also going to be talking to allies like Japan about their readiness needs and capabilities and seeing if there's ways to work together to improve that, because as you saw, the Japanese reacted very stridently to what they claim were missiles fired that landed into their economic exclusion zone. They take that seriously. We take that seriously.
You know, do you guys have a theory as to why, you know, it feels like there's an average of one U.S. senator a month that visits Taiwan. So China can choose to be outraged by this at any moment in time. They chose to be outraged by Speaker Pelosi's visit. Do you really think it's justifiable, number one? And number two, what is our assessment as to why they've decided to be outraged by this visit as opposed to the visits by American elected officials on a monthly basis?
You captured it perfectly there, Chuck. They chose to be outraged. They chose to react the way that they are acting now in response to Speaker Pelosi's trip. Before she went, before it was even confirmed, we said that it doesn't matter. This is very much inconsistent. It's very consistent with our one China policy and very much consistent with previous travel by members of Congress who have a right and a responsibility to travel overseas as they see fit. There was no reason for them to overreact the way they've been overreacting. Now, why? I don't know. It's hard to get inside President Xi's head here to try to determine what's driving this. He has a lot on his domestic plate that is important to remember in terms of context here. He's got the Party Congress coming up in a couple of weeks. He wants a third term, unprecedented. He's got COVID lockdowns he's dealing with. His economy's not doing as great as he claims it's doing, and he's got some issues there. So there's a lot on his domestic plate, too. That might have been factored into some of this decision-making.
Look, are we aware that, you know, based on how we react could be based on how Southeast Asian countries decide whether they end up in the sphere of influence with China versus the sphere of influence with the West? How important is us handling this so that we don't let China's intimidation tactics essentially work with countries like Indonesia or the Philippines?
The main objective in how we handle ourselves in there is to take the tensions down. Everything we've done, everything we've said has been designed to de-escalate the tensions, to make it clear we don't want a crisis, we're not looking for one, and in fact, that's what responsible powers do. Now, obviously, we have close relationships with the ASEAN nations, and we want to see those relationships continue to improve and grow. Many of those nations are deeply concerned about China's coercive and aggressive activities, particularly in the South China Sea. And they've made no bones about that. In fact, they put out a statement yesterday, or maybe it was today, about their concerns over what Beijing is doing in terms of destabilizing activities in and around the Strait. So we're going to keep those relationships strong. 5 of our 7 treaty alliances, Chuck, are in the Pacific region. 5 of 7, and we take those commitments very seriously. One
question on the killing of al-Zawahiri in Afghanistan. The Taliban government said it's a violation of the Doha Agreement. But I am curious, the fact that the Taliban has responded with a press release, do you expect them to retaliate? Or is this one of those occasions where they know they got caught and they're just going to rhetorically say what they say and they're going to move on? The violation of the Doha Agreement was on their part. Let's be clear. They had agreed in that piece of paper that they weren't going to harbor terrorists inside Afghanistan that would pose a threat to the American homeland. They harbored Zawahiri. He's a threat to the homeland, and we took him out. I think that strike said a lot to the Taliban about how seriously we take our commitments. And look, if they, as they claim they do, they want to be seen as legitimate governors. They want financing. They want support from the international community. They want to open up. If you want all those things, you can't have that while you're harboring senior al-Qaeda leaders right there in downtown Kabul. There's no consistency there. Yeah, one wonders if they knew he was in downtown Kabul. It was either awfully brazen or they knew what could end up happening. It's fascinating. John Kirby, Strategic Communications for the National Security Team at the White House. It's always a pleasure to get your perspective. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chuck. Good to be with you.
Up next, the White House declares officially monkeypox a public health emergency amid rising case counts. So what you need to know and why the emergency was declared next.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.